Hello everybody and welcome to Bite Size Biology, and today we are going to look at the digestive system. So the digestive system is an important enough chapter in which it comes up frequently enough, and when it does come up, it could come up as a full question. So that's a 60-mark question, or it could come up as a full short question. So definitely a chapter worth knowing, and there's a lot of repetition from what you would have learned in junior cycles, so that helps. It's just obviously extended. So you could be asked to draw a label diagram of the digestive system. This has been asked once before. A difficult enough diagram, probably the most challenging of all the diagrams to draw, I'm not sure. You also could be asked to draw the hepatic portal system. You should be able to describe the functions of the digestive organs, the adaptations of the villi, the capillaries, and so forth. All the different pHs. Okay, well, there isn't that many different ones, but and enzyme activity. Okay, you should be able to link it to the circulatory system and lymphatic system. Now that's really important because this has come up multiple times in which both chapters have been linked to this, and it kind of makes sense why that would be the case if you've done your study already. Definitions, as always, the physical activities. So we talked about the chemical ones, the enzymes and the HCl, but you also need to know the physical ones too. And also describe the hepatic portal system. So as well as being able to draw it and label it, obviously, you should be able to describe it as well. Okay, look, we'll tear straight into it because this is going to be a long enough one, I say. So 2019 was the last time this came up. You're asked to state what is meant by the term digestion. This comes up quite frequently. It is the breakdown of food. Now, the question underneath it, give 2 reasons why digestion is necessary, isn't such a frequent question, and sometimes students answer it within part I. So you just have to be a little bit careful there that you repeat your answer again for part 2 if that was the case. So digestion is the breakdown of food, but the reason we need digestion, is to make food soluble so that it is easier to absorb into the bloodstream and to transport. Okay, so to make food soluble being the key word there really, and therefore easier to transport in the blood. Name and describe the method by which food is passed along the alimentary canal. Peristalsis is the only method, girls. I teach all girls, sorry guys, so I often say girls. But anyhow, peristalsis is muscular contractions. You particularly learn about it in the esophagus and the small intestines. Okay. It also actually takes place in the fallopian tube, for which the egg is moved along from the ovary towards the uterus. IV. Name an enzyme that digests dietary protein. Where is this enzyme produced? Where is it active? And name the products. Now, IV was actually okay, but the next 2 parts were a problem for some people. So pepsin is the correct answer for that. Okay, pepsinogen is the inactive form, and then pepsin is the active form, and it becomes activated by a low pH due to the HCl. Some people know it as protease, you can call it that too. Now, where is it produced? The stomach, that was fine, but VI then caused a few issues. Okay, where is active? Well, it's also the stomach, and as soon as students wrote down the stomach twice, they were like thinking, oh, hang on here, have I made a mistake? Which is very understandable, because that's exactly what I'd be thinking myself. And in this case, they weren't. Okay. Now, there are other answers acceptable for these, okay, but I'm just going to go over the key answers. VII, the products formed by the complete digestion. Okay, so I don't want to see peptides. Okay, so important. A lot of students went down the road of peptides because that comes next, but it said the complete digestion. So therefore, the only acceptable answer, and you'll know that's the case because there'll be a little asterisk at the top of it, like this, is amino acids. Okay, so that's the only answer you could have said. So just be careful, read the full question there. These products are transported to the liver. Okay, so it's going from the small intestines towards the liver. Name the blood vessel that transports these digestion products to the liver. Well, that's your hepatic portal vein. Really, really important. Okay, it's bringing the products of, that's amino acids in this case, okay, towards the liver. Okay, 2018, only a small question, but nonetheless, here it is. Bile contains bile salts, which consists of sodium hydrogen carbonate. Give a biological explanation for those. Okay, so sodium hydrocarbonate neutralizes the acidic chyme entering the duodenum. So once the HCl in the food and has all been churned, okay, we call that chyme. Now chyme obviously is going to be acidic because of the HCl being around pH of what? 1 to 2. Okay, and we know the duodenum needs to be a pH of 7 or at least 8. Okay, sorry, not at least 7 or a little bit higher, so around 8. Most students say around 8 or 7. So the pH needs to be correct because the enzymes need optimum activity and all of that. And I've told you over and over again that whenever you're mentioning temperature or pH in any sort of organism, be it the human body or a microorganism, it always goes back to those enzymes. I'll repeat the answer. Sodium hydrocarbonate neutralizes the acidic chyme entering the duodenum so that the pH for the enzymes is suitable. I said a bit too much probably in that, but that's the correct sentence you should be saying. You'd have got full marks. Okay, 2015, so long question, full 60-mark question if we're looking at it. It's actually a very tough one. You'll see why in a second. So humans are heterotrophic and omnivorous. Explain each of those. So just going back to your definitions, everybody, and what is meant by a balanced diet. Funny enough, students didn't do great on the balanced diet question. They're fine for the heterotrophic and omnivorous for the most part, but a balanced diet caught a lot of students. When I mean that by a lot of students, I mean like they're even the particularly good ones. So heterotrophic, everybody, are organisms that cannot make their own food. Okay, they cannot make their own food. We are heterotrophic. We cannot make our own food. Whereas omnivorous are organisms that eat both meat and plants. Okay, so animals and plants to be precise. Okay, and then a balanced diet. Okay, this is simply the correct quantities of each food type are being digested to ensure that we remain healthy. So when we have a balanced diet, we were supposed to have a certain amount of quantity from each of the different types of food types so that we remain healthy. Okay, so I told you before you were asked to draw a large Labour diagram of the digestive system, and it was 2015 that this question was asked. So, human alimentary canal and its associated glands, and then you're to name the 2 associated glands, 2 parts of the small intestine, and 2 parts of the large intestine. Okay. Now, rather than drawing it out, I just copied the picture online. So you can see here you've got your salivary glands. Okay, I know there's a little bit extra in this. We can ignore that. Needs to be there. Okay, the mouth, obviously, your esophagus. Sometimes it's spelled with an E. The Americans spell it with the E. We don't. Your liver, which is a gland. Your stomach. Your pancreas, which is a gland. Okay, you've got your large intestine going around it. Okay, and you've got your small intestine, which is connected to the stomach, the duodenum. And the gallbladder is there too. Now, it didn't have to be perfect, okay, at all, but it did have to be quite large, and you did have to label it quite well. And in particular, you had to pay attention to the small intestine, the large intestine, and the glands. So I wrote them down here just to keep track. So for the glands, everybody, there are 3 of them that I labelled: the pancreas, liver, and the salivary glands. For the small intestines, the duodenum and the ileum is sufficient. And then for the large intestine, the colon is obviously the main part where the reabsorption takes place. Okay, the cecum and the rectum are also parts. You could have used the appendix instead of the cecum, which is here. But the cecum was the first choice answer. So that was the diagram to human alimentary canal, and I would strongly recommend that when you're practicing this, that you do practice drawing that diagram. 2015 was the last time it was asked. I think it was the only time it was asked, actually. Okay, so let's talk about lipase. So what is lipase? Give one part of the canal that secretes lipase. So that's important there, that it says secrete, not make. Okay, so just be careful of that. Okay, and the approximate pH of lipase action. Okay, so what is lipase? It is an enzyme that breaks down lipids, and the products of lipase are glycerol, I should say, and fatty acids. It acts in the duodenum and a pH of 7. Okay, you could have said 8, it doesn't matter. Okay, the last part of this question is about the dental formula. So write down the human dental formula for us. Okay, so that's your incisors, your molars, premolars, and canines. So this is here. So I is 2/2, C, canines, 1/1, premolars 2/2, molars 3/3. And we know that's like half the mouth, top and bottom. So we have 2 incisors on top, 2 incisors on the bottom. Some people put brackets around this and then put a 2 in front of it, indicating both sides of the mouth. Either or is fine, but as long as you get what's in the brackets correct. So 2 incisors on top, 2 on the bottom, 1 canine on top, 1 on the bottom, 2 premolars on top, 2 on the bottom, and 3 molars on top, 3 on the bottom. Now, give one difference between the dental formula shown and referred to above, so that's the human adult teeth, okay, and the tooth arrangement of this mammal here. Okay, well, we can see straight away that the canines are way more pronounced here, okay? But the question was a difference in that dental formula, the formula itself, okay? So I don't want to really see too much about the canines being sharper or anything like that, because that actually won't get you the marks. What you could have said was the animal has more canines and incisors than humans. So incisors, we have 2 and 1 canine on top. But you can see here that there's definitely more canines here and then the incisors here, okay, than we do, especially down the bottom. Okay, and what type of food do you think is consumed by this mammal? Well, it's probably going to be meat, okay, because those canines are particularly large and pointy. Okay, meat, long, sharp canines. Last part, and it's in relation to the large intestine, which comes up frequently enough. Give 2 functions of the large intestine, outline 2 beneficial functions of bacteria that live in the digestive tract. Okay, common enough question. Okay, the functions of the large intestine, the colon, obviously the main one there is to reabsorb water. Okay, that's a given. But it's also responsible for egestion, so that's removal of feces, and it absorbs vitamins. Now be careful here. Lots of students say that the large intestines make vitamins or produces vitamins. That's not strictly correct. Okay, it's the location where vitamins are made, but it's not actually the large intestine making those vitamins. It's the symbiotic bacteria doing that job. So the functions of the large intestine, the 2 of them, reabsorb water, absorb them vitamins, and egestion. The second question asked you then, what is the function of the symbiotic bacteria? Well, they have 2 functions. One is to produce vitamins, B and K. You don't necessarily have to name those vitamins. And then the second function is to compete against pathogenic microorganisms. So when we're eating food, like we're always consuming a certain amount of bacteria or microorganisms. The HCl and the different pHs will try and get rid of those microorganisms by denaturing them, but not all of them get denatured. Some of them get through. So one of the last, I suppose, defensive features, okay, is the symbiotic bacteria, because if you have competition, you are going to reduce numbers, particularly of the pathogenic microorganisms. Okay, we're going to do one more question and then we'll finish up with this one, and we'll do part 2 in a moment. So this is 2012, question 15. The diagram shows a transverse section of the small intestine. You're asked to label the parts X and Y. So X is over here. Well, X, this is your villi. So a villus, you could say the villus wall if you want, or just the villi or villus. Villus is singular, villi is plural, so it doesn't matter. And then Y is like the tongue part here, that's how I always describe it. Okay. In the middle, that's the lacteal. So X is the villus, Y is the lacteal, everybody. What process results from the contraction of two parts of tissue Z? Well, as soon as you see contractions, okay, you should be thinking of peristalsis, which we have down here. In your answer book, indicate which of the following accurately represents the pH of the contents of the small intestine: acidic, neutral, or alkaline. Alkaline being a base. Now, this is where marker schemes kind of vary a small bit, okay, from this year and previous years. So the answer for this one was alkaline. So you're looking at a pH of 8. Okay, but if you go back to a previous question that we've done today, 7 was accepted, and 7 is usually accepted. So you should have been able to say neutral, but in this case here, this was for 2012. Okay, it's going back 8 years now. Okay, alkaline was the one that's accepted. Okay, the only one, and you have a pH of 8. So just to be aware of that has changed slightly. IV. Name two glands that pass the secretions into the small intestines. So that's the liver and the pancreas, which we have here. You can see there's a repeat question here. What are symbiotic bacteria and two functions of it? So I didn't really define what symbiotic bacteria was in the last one, but we did state the functions. So bacteria living in close contact of another organism in which at least one of them benefits. And in this case, in fact, both of them benefit, the human and the bacteria. Okay, the human gets vitamins, and bacteria gets food. So symbiotic bacteria living in close contact of another organism in which at least one of them benefits. So symbiotic anything, okay, is a living thing in close contact of another organism in which at least one of them benefits. Often they say actually, more in pre-paper questions than exam paper questions, where an organism living in close contact of another organism of a different species in which at least one of them benefits. So that was more of a pre-paper question than an exam paper question, but nonetheless it's a good one to note. Two functions of the bacteria, we said that already, and where in the human alimentary canal is most water reabsorbed. Okay, we said that already, the large intestine. Okay, so look, this is part 1 of the digestive system. Okay, we haven't really discussed the hepatic portal system, okay, which means it hasn't come up in a while. So it's definitely something worth looking at if anyone here is in around the 2021-2022 exams. So we haven't linked it too much to the lymphatic system either. Okay, but the rest of it, okay, for the most part, we have discussed. Okay, so I hope that helped, guys, and pay attention to part 2 now, which I'll do shortly.